I am with the King of St. Louis, Josh Augustine, one of my favorite guests that has been on my show, and he's here with me once again. Your Majesty, welcome to my humble podcast. It's always great to have you.
Hey, thank you for having me on again, Tyler.
Like reflecting on just this year on 2022 in general, and you know I have a lot of guests on over the course of the year from all over the world. But when I think of like 2022 and like who's made the most out of it, like you're on that short list of fighters that I know of that have really capitalized on this year. The two opponents that you have gotten matched up with, you've just burned through these guys. And here we are. It's right around Halloween, and you have a third fight of the year booked up. That's got to be a pretty tight feeling, right? Like you're out for so long, and then you've been able to have a lot of action that hasn't happened in the past.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I would have liked to have been even more active. Obviously, with two fights falling out back to back, that would have put us at 5 fights this year. And that's more where I would have liked to jump right back in, just to get right back into the mix and get right back into the running. But I'm happy to be where I am. I'm grateful, the way everything worked out. It really built the Weston fight, and it rolls into this one, and it creates the opportunity for the Ty Clark rematch and the title shot in February, which has been I think will be a huge blessing.
Talk to me a little bit about just kind of like where you are. It's been kind of a an interesting. You've had to roll with the punches a lot more than you typically have, and what I mean by that is historically you've fought at 45, but like with all these other fights that have been happening lately, like you've had to play around with your weight class. You had a catch weight, I think, at like 170, 175 the last time, which is like way heavier than what you typically come in at. Can you just tell me a little bit, like, number one, how difficult is it for you to still get matchups? And number two, like what does that say about like just kind of your approach to the weight classes? Or do you have some flexibility still, or is the 45-55 range still kind of where you prefer to be?
55 is where I'm going to be competitively going forward.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, I am flexible with that weight. I'm not set on, especially at the regional level, I'm not set on the 155-pound weight class. Obviously, I can beat a lot of these 170 guys on the regional level, but as I go to make my run, I'm gonna do that at 155 pounds at lightweight. That's where I'm most comfortable at, and that's where I'm going to be most competitive at going forward. And that really excites me because obviously it's one of the most exciting weight classes on the planet.
It is one of the most exciting weight classes. And then what's also interesting is when you think back to like 5-6 years ago, if you looked at the UFC, you'd say, oh, yeah, 155 pounds, like that is the most stacked weight class. But now you've seen guys take periods of inactivity. A few guys have left. I would go as far as to say 35 is probably the thickest one right now. But
Yeah.
55, I feel like you have like a lot of like old names that have been around for a while. And I think we're right on the precipice of seeing like a lot of guys retire, just kind of like move on. And what that means for you, right? Guys like you means opportunity, right? And I think
Yeah.
that's like super exciting. And then
Mhm.
especially you look at like Bellator, their 155-pound class, there's a lot of opportunities out there for you.
100%. I mean, the Bellator lightweight class is wide open right now, and you see Usman fighting for the title. I'm honestly really excited to see that fight because I feel like I've fought better guys than Usman has previously leading up to that. Justin Gonzalez is a game opponent, but that's the best guy that he's fought, and that was in his last fight. And then if you look at all of his previous opponents' records before that, he was beating nobodies. I mean, the guy I'm fighting, in 2 weeks, Izzy William is probably tougher than any one of those guys that he beat. And then, they're going to jump him all the way up to Patricky Pitbull, which, to your point, is one of those guys who's been around for forever. He's been in the sport for forever. He's probably a little chinny. He's a little worn out. Obviously, he's got all the skills. He's been around for forever, but
Right.
the youth, the speed is going to be with Usman and obviously a lot of his opponents at this point.
obviously you are in a position where like the first major promotion that calls you up, you're a dummy if you don't take the deal. But selfishly, I hope you go to Bellator because it's my favorite promotion. And what also excites me about it is because you wouldn't have to go very far at all to start fighting some of these ranked guys. I sincerely mean that. You could actually go into a Bellator fight and fight a top 10 guy right away.
Well, that's that's what excited me about the Bellator contract originally, and jumping right in with them, as I felt like I was going to get into the mix as soon as I was under contract, and and I feel like honestly right now I have a straight path to the Bellator title, because with Shamrock I win this fight, I go in fight for the Shamrock title, and with the Shamrock title I get the Bellator contract. So right there, I just take one fight at a time, get through my first 3-fight contract. And my teammate Julius Ingliskus, he got through his first 3-fight contract, and that's when the Grand Prix started, and that got him an alternate spot and jumped him right into a title shot on short notice. So I'm looking to have somewhat of a similar path. Obviously, things are always shaken up in different weight classes, and 155 is a little bit thicker than 205, even though in Bellator it's still thin.
Yeah.
And but there's higher competition at the deeper end of the pool. But there's the Grand Prix coming up next year, which obviously that entices it. The $1 million entices everybody. It makes everybody want to fight, even if you're outmatched or whatever. But
I was thinking about fighting for Bellator actually.
doing that $1 million tournament.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I mean,
better watch out.
Yeah, so it's enticing to everybody, and everybody obviously wants to get in it. But for me, I feel like I actually have an opportunity to get into that tournament, especially if I can turn over a couple fights at the beginning half of the year next year.
One of the things that when I think about for you, like number one, you're almost an old guy now. You're almost 30, by the way. Like you're wearing all the black. That's very fitting, right? Black and being an old guy. Hey, I'm wearing black too, and I'm a lot older than you. But the what's great about that though, your athletic prime, right? Like I still don't think, even though you're 29 years old, I still don't quite think you are. I wouldn't say you're in your prime right now. I still wouldn't say that. I think you got a little ways to go. But what really, really excites me is the fact that you're about to make like a major step into like a big promotion, and maybe a fight or two into that, you'll just be hitting your athletic prime. And that's really exciting.
Yeah, and all the timing has worked out absolutely perfect, and that's why I say like I feel like this is really my run, and everything in the past was just learning experience for me, and going into this, I see it the same way. I feel absolutely amazing, and I feel like I am in my athletic prime as far as like movement, but coming with a fighter's prime is that fighting experience, cage time, getting in there with guys who have been there longer than you and overcoming obstacles, overcoming adversity. And I'm ready to put that body of work in. I'm excited to put that body of work in. And I think in a couple of weeks, that's another one of those fights where I'm going to have to really sit there, dig deep. Izzy William's a tough guy. He went to decision with Jordan Levitt. He's not going to be easy to finish, but I'm going to be right there to show my skill set. And I know I'm going to overcome every piece of adversity.
Can you tell me, Josh, like how did this fight with Izzy come together? Because like you and matchmaking, like that's always kind of a bit of a nightmare. Every single time you and I are DMing with each other, you're like, "Yo, Tyler, I got to fight," and then like 2 seconds later, I'm like, "Yo, tell me about who you're fighting." And you're like, "Oh, well, it changed like 11 times in the past 45 minutes, but it's going to be like so and so." So like, I'm curious, like maybe you could say, maybe you can't, but like how many like guys, how many names did you get before you got Izzy Williams?
Actually only one.
Oh wow, okay. That's not too
Yeah,
bad. That's a
yeah,
rarity for you.
yeah. The original guy, I think, just picked a different matchup, and then we just kind of were fumbling through a few options, and I think Izzy's a good fight.
I like the fight. Your opponent is in his mid 30s, and you and I were talking before we started shooting this episode, and we started keying in on some of the guys that he's fought in the past. You've already mentioned a couple of them. You mentioned Jordan Levitt. He's also fought Orion Kosi, and he's also fought Dung from Bellator MMA. So when you look at like his losses, like he's lost against game competition. So that you had to have looked at that, and that had to have like, I don't know, probably like made you smile a little bit. Like, okay, like this guy is like, he'll be a good fight for me.
No, it's certainly a real challenge. And if I were to not perform, then he would certainly be there to beat me. But I'm a top level guy, and that's why this opportunity is so fun. Um, to go out there against a guy who took Jordan Levitt to decision, even though I feel like Jordan Levitt could have pushed the gas and got rid of him. I can't find any film on the other guy who's in the UFC who beat him. Obviously, his fight with Dung in Bellator in his Bellator debut. I thought that he actually won that fight against Dung,
Mm-hmm.
but regardless, it was back and forth, and all I could see is that he struggled with the height, especially whenever Dung was punching, and Dung doesn't punch like me. So I feel like this is going to be a real showcase of my skills, and it's going to introduce me, right back into the running.
Well, I think at any weight class, but like this fight, let me rephrase. This fight's going to happen at 155 pounds, I assume.
It was supposed to happen at 155 pounds. He actually asked for it at 165. I tried to negotiate him down to 60 so we could simulate it a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
but he didn't want to do it. So obviously, I'm just going to accept it 65.
Okay, so it's a catch weight at 65. But what's really interesting, though, is your size and your reach. When you actually fight in the true 155-pound weight class, you're a lot bigger than a lot of these other guys. You're a lot rangier than a lot of these other guys. Like, imagine a guy like my size, 5'9", at 155 pounds, and my reach versus your reach. You're talking about two completely different things. And I think that's what's really, really exciting when I think about you at that lightweight. I think about this big, tall, rangy guy that's really, really difficult to like have to game plan for, particularly when you're like not a wrestler type, like you're a striker. So that's really, really like, oh shit, like that's really exciting when you think about it.
Yeah, and in the last couple of fights, I've shown that my wrestling has improved tenfold from the previous half of my career. And I intend on showing that in this fight if the fight continues to develop and that needs to materialize. I do feel like I'm going to have a striking advantage, though. And I wouldn't be surprised if he got clipped up early and got put away.
Oh, interesting. So are you shooting your shot, Mr. Augustine? Is that a prediction I'm hearing?
Well, it's a tough prediction, honestly, with this guy because he's a very tough dude. He's an island boy
Yeah.
from New Guinea, and I've seen him get caught before, and against guys who don't punch like me.
Mm-hmm.
And I can guarantee that I'm going to land some devastating shots out of the gate. But I don't know if pressing the gas is going to be the best option. I'm going to have to just feel that instinctively in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
If I feel that quitting him, if I see that he's hurt, I'm going to get him out of there immediately. And my power is going to take over. My speed's going to take over, and he's going to get out of there. But if I feel like it looks like in all of his other fights, he just walks through everything. And if he's able to withstand some of that, then I'm going to just outskill him for the rest of the fight.
A win over this guy puts you at 7-2, 3 fights, 3 victories, all in 2022. You've made the most out of your year. And then we already talked about just kind of like what's next and just how close you are to that next level. I think that's like what's really, really exciting. And the fact that you have been able to fight 3 times this year, I think that's a testament to yourself because I know how hard it is for you to get some of these fights. Like, I know you have to jump through a lot of hoops. And I think that's kind of an indicator, right? That like you're ready, like you're probably ready. You've outgrown the fish tank and you're probably ready to like move on to something different.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really itching. I'm really scratching to really break through. I want to break through, and I feel like I'm ready for that competition level. I feel like I'm almost needed. I feel like my personality is almost needed for the industry right now. I feel like it's a little bit dry. They could use someone like me, use a knockout artist, use someone that's aggressive and someone that's not afraid to speak their mind, and especially in Bellator. But skill set wise, I can go tit for tat with anyone on the planet.
Of course you could, because like I know I've seen you fight before. I know exactly what you're capable of doing. I think one of the things that makes it so interesting is like you're fast, you're strong, you're very violent. You knock people out, and if you like combat sports, that people are naturally going to like gravitate to you. But therein kind of lies the problem, though, right? It's like you have to like give people who aren't from St. Louis like a reason to like tune in, right? Everyone in St. Louis knows you're a badass, but like once you get out of that pond, it's like who's this guy? Right. And that's just kind of like the thing, like, who is this guy? You say that he's good, but like, what's his story? Right. So, like, that's one of the things that is so, whether you, maybe it's a good thing or bad thing, I'm not really sure. But the reality is, like, you have to be marketable. Like, you have to, like, give people a reason to, like, want to watch you fight. Like, people want to
Hmm.
hear what your story's all about. So, like, what
Hmm.
would you say, like, is your story that would like compel somebody who's not from St. Louis to like sit down on a Saturday night and watch you fight? Like, what's like your compelling story to make them want to tune in?
Um, well, I think that there's been a lot of stuff like you said. I've shown a lot of persistence to get into the cage and fight these fights that are really hard to come by. But not only those things are the only things that happen in our
Mm-hmm.
lives. Obviously, fighters have real lives that are happening, and I've had a truly insane year. I've lost my cousin, an aunt, my grandmother, and my father. My son was kidnapped and taken away. I haven't seen him since January, and we're in the middle of a custody battle. I actually have trial in 6 days for my son to get him back. And that's been the toughest battle of my life, obviously, on top of losing my father. And, dealing with all of this stuff throughout the past year has shown me how little and how easy it is to deal with the fight game. This shit isn't shit to me. This shit literally means absolutely nothing, but I love it, and I will always love the sport. But I have a very limited time, and I'm aware of that. And I'm gonna continue to grow awareness for fathers, and I'm gonna actually start a foundation for fathers' rights. And whenever this all happened, there was no one for me to speak to, and there was no real help for me to find lawyers or to find advocates or anyone for me to have any type of avenue to navigate this. So I had to go and find people individually. So I'm going to help connect all these people. I'm going to make a network for fathers like me who do have to go through this. And it's going to be a lot smoother for other people that do have this. And I'm going to help other people in the future. And I'm going to be able to speak more on that whenever it becomes more real, and whenever I'm able to actually sit down and make a real foundation for it. But that's more of a long-term goal. But that is the positivity that I have pulled from this.
I tell you what, like,
So
I'm a father. I have two kids myself. I have gone. Things didn't really work out that well. With the mother of my first kid. And so I know like some of the things that you're talking about. Like I can tell you like from my own experience in life, like nobody really understands like what it is to like be a father. Like I don't think you really think about it. Even as a man, like, I never really thought about it until like all of a sudden this like kid came out and like, oh, this little girl's yours. I'm like, oh shit, like okay. And then again, you don't really think about it like when things are going smooth. It's just like, oh, I'm just going to Target to get diapers and
yep,
formula and cool. And then
yep,
like when things don't work out, then all of a sudden it's like you see the world in a very, very different light. And I tell you what,
yes.
man, like that world couldn't be more indifferent or cold or calloused. Because it's just your walking ATM machine, nothing more. And it hurts to hear for the first time.
Well, especially the court system,
Yeah.
especially the court system. So my first piece of advice for any fathers who have a child outside of wedlock, and you're not with someone that you're sure that you're going to continue to be with,
Mm-hmm.
get your custody stuff in order. Even if you're iffy and you want to be with them, get your custody stuff in order immediately so you have your rights as a father. That's the number one thing. I thought that things were going to work out. I was being positive. I was being stupidly optimistic. I was being a child, is what I was being.
Yeah.
So take care of your stuff, gentlemen. If you are in that type of situation, um, and that's as much as I'd like to really say on all that stuff. It is a devastating topic for me.
Yeah.
It's been a lot to overcome this past year, but as I'm able to speak more on that and able to grow, I think that that's a relatable thing that at
It's
least
incredible. That's
at least
incredibly
dads.
relatable. It's incredibly relatable. Like when you think about it, it's just like those are the types of things that are going to draw people to be like, okay, wow, like I'm not like this like cool fighter guy or anything like that, but like I'm going through a lot of the same shit that this guy's going through. And like that guy, like in a way, like represents a lot of us who just feel like disenfranchised, that we feel like shit all the time. We feel like we're marginalized people, just because we're like men. And that to me, like somebody like you was like what I would have really needed when I was like 23, 24 years old when I was going through all this bullshit, you know?
And I mean, honestly, I could have used myself at a certain point as well, at least this mindset at a certain
Yeah.
point, but it takes time and it takes healing and, like actually learning from experiences. And for a
Mm-hmm.
while, when you're caught up in the emotions of things, it's easy to throw a pity party for yourself um, versus facing what you actually need to do. Um, and it is tough. And, I can tell you, I definitely related exactly to all those feelings you just said, especially after I had had my second loss and I was working a really shitty job that I didn't like.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm kind of like on and off with the baby mama. And, I didn't really know what was going to happen. I didn't expect any of this, absolutely not. And, but it's easy to become marginalized in this society and be broken down because of money. And obviously we're all looking at Instagram seeing all these guys with Lamborghinis and all these girls and looking so cool and all this stuff, and it's easy to get caught up into all that
Yeah.
stuff, but really all you can do is just do the best that you can every single day with the cards that you have.
Absolutely. And I think I would just I would tell anybody like who's going through a situation like that, like, hey, like, dude, it's not fair. I fucking know. It's not fair. You're getting you're getting fucked. Like I know it, but you know what? Like, I'm sorry that shit happened to you. It happens to a lot of us, but there's like one way out, and the only way out is through. Like, you gotta get up in the next fucking morning. You gotta put
Yep.
your fucking boots on. You gotta do
Yep.
whatever it is
Yep.
to keep your lights on, and you gotta live your life at the end of the day. Like like
Yeah.
like this shit. Like, it took me a long time. It took me a couple of years. Like, I was in a really like bad depression about it myself when I was going through some of this stuff. Just kind of like I won't even say on here some of the things that entered into my head, but dude, I tell you what, it was pretty fucking dark and twisted. And only somebody who's been in that situation can even begin to understand, like, even remotely, the shit that you think about. But I don't know, for
It's easy
me,
to judge. It's easy to judge
yeah.
whenever you haven't experienced it. Whenever you haven't
Yeah.
experienced something like that, it's easy to judge and point fingers and say you should have did this, you should have did that. This is how you should conduct yourself through that. But to
Mm-hmm.
actually feel whenever your
Yeah.
kid that you're responsible for are taken from you, um, is a whole nother level of
Yeah.
emotion. And like you said, dad still got to go to work.
You still gotta get your shit taken care of. Like, you can call out a few days, but then after
Yeah,
those few days, it's like, well, like, how am I gonna like pay my rent? Like, how am I gonna like pay for a lawyer or all this other shit? Like, I still got to
exactly,
put gas in my car. Like, I
exactly.
mean, you're gonna have to get up and grind. And I think for me, that's one of the reasons why I love MMA so much, is because it's like the daily, like, or let me rephrase it, like the life struggles. It's like that in MMA, but like personified,
Yes, one
right?
hundred percent.
Because it's like I don't have to like walk into a cage really to like relate to like what that feels like. Like, I can only imagine, like, you work your ass off for something, you sacrifice so much, you don't go to barbecues, like you have no life outside of your 6 to 8 week camp. You
Yep.
go into a cage, and then in your case, you get your leg fucking shattered right away, and then
Right.
you have to like tap out, and then it's like, hey, good job, sport. Here's your $1,000, and we don't know if you're ever going to fight again, but thanks for playing. And it's like,
Exactly.
it's
Thanks
like,
for playing the
bro,
game.
it's like, bro, like, I was just thinking about that, like, having like a broke fucking leg, like as jacked up as it was for you, and then like we were in the pandemic, we had no idea when this shit was going to end, and it's like, golly, talk about another death spiral you could have gone into
Oh,
just for
dude, it
fighting.
was it was the darkest. It was by far the darkest place that I've ever been. But but I thank God for having a strong support system and a good family. I still had
Mm-hmm.
my dad at that time, and he did help me through that and help me get rehab through that. Help me work through it. And I sometimes I look back and I really don't know how I had the strength to do things, and I don't even know what helped me navigate through things. But honestly, just continuing, and the love for the game and the love for my son, and knowing that I'm the only one that's going to be able to provide for him, and the belief in myself that ultimately I know I'll be able to do this, and continuing to, like you said, just push through, keep going.
You're going to like look back on this, like you're going to be like 45 years old, and who knows, you'll have your own little like MMA gym, you'll have your own little fucking killers, and you'll be coaching people. I'll see you walk out all the time like James Krause or some shit like that. Uh, on for these UFC cards. But you're gonna like look back on this like one day and you're gonna be like, dude, I fucking did that. Like I had all the chips were down. Nobody. I didn't really have a huge network. I didn't really have a whole lot of friends. I didn't have a lot of friends in high places. Like, dude, I took a fucking bus to work or whatever the case was. Like, these are all the things that this was all the obstacles I was going through. Like, this is like the battlefield and all the mines that I had to tiptoe around, and you did it.
Well,
And
one of the oddest things is that whenever I finally broke through this hard part of this thing, I didn't know if I was going to make it back to the cage. I didn't know
yeah,
how my work life would ever be back. Whenever I finally got that in order, and now I have these opportunities, and it looks like this is starting to flourish again. My personal life began to take a hit, and that's where you start to decipher and realize this is really just a business.
mm-hmm.
And even though that we put everything into this. And like you said, MMA is just personified everyday life. It's crazy because all the fucking fighters, most of the high level fighters had crazy ass lives and have situations like this is like, pretty normal for fighters, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Or other just crazy stuff, honestly, like
Yeah.
especially the foreign fighters, some of them, have insane circumstances and would just laugh at this. Like this is absolutely nothing. But
It is something though, and I think like one of the things that like really you can feel really, really isolated despite how common it is. Really, just no one talks about the shit because people like it's an emotional topic. It's fucking hard to talk about without getting like really angry or like really emotional or upset and stuff like that. But and like, so what do? We fucking bury it on the inside. We don't fucking tell anybody, right?
yeah, but I have a really good support system.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I have a really cool family, and they have everyone has their way of kind of just speaking to me about it personally and making it like it's not like it's a very understanding thing, and they just want to know what's going on, and
Yeah.
and I think we're all very similar in like our personality types, as in like uh okay, what's next to get him back? Like, how do we get him back? It's not like, let's throw this pity party. Are you okay? How are you
Mm-hmm.
feeling? It's like, what's next? When's the next trial day? When's the next court day? Do you need us there? Do we need to write? Like, you know what I mean? Everyone is more, helping me just go forward.
Does when all the things that are going on in your life, like you talked about, like getting your son back and all the obstacles that you've encountered as a result of that, like going to court, like all these like very stressful things that are like happening in your personal life, and then on top of that, like you have a training camp, like you have
Mhm.
your weight that you're having to keep an eye on, and then this guy that they're bringing in for you, and the expectation is like, okay, well, Josh is gonna freaking go in and do what Josh does. Like, does MMA like is that like a pacifier in a way for you? Like to just kind of like I don't know if like you ever stop thinking about it, but like does it like I don't know do something for you that nothing else does?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's like therapeutic. I get to get in there every single day and just let loose and just do what I love to do,
Yeah.
and play. Really is what I always say. I always just get to go play every day. But you know, there's a flip side to that too, where you can get too sucked into it and you're not there for everything in your personal life, especially whenever you get as obsessed as I do. Not everyone goes as deep as I do with it, and
Yeah.
that's why I see a lot of the results that I see, and that's why I have the expectations that I have, and I'm happy to have those expectations. But with that, I also understand, like I said, with all these experiences, that none of this shit is real. I don't give a
Mm-hmm.
fuck if I get knocked out in 30 seconds and I can't ever fight again. I did my best. Like I
Mm-hmm.
literally am doing every single thing that I can every single day, and that's what I hang my hat on. I don't hang my hat on the results. I know that whenever I watch him and I see the way he fights and I see the way I fight, that's not going to happen. I know what's going to happen. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to control every single second of that fight because I have the skills and I have the work ethic and I put the work in every single day to do that. But I don't worry about the results is basically what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to keep going with the journey and focus on what's in front of me every single day. And that's the only thing that I can really control.
When you fight in your hometown, is there like a lot of like mental pressure that comes with that? Because you're selling sections of the stadium or whatever out, or in your case you're probably selling the entire event out, and like people are coming in, and they're paying money, and not that it's that big of a deal, but it's like if I were in St. Louis, of course I would go. But I'm like, yeah, I'm going. I'm gonna see Josh knock this guy out, and like have 200 people talk about that. Like, yeah, Josh
Right.
is gonna go and like knock this guy out. Like, I don't know. Like, does that kind of like fuck with you a little bit, or did it maybe earlier on in your career?
Earlier on, like more whenever I was an amateur and there was maybe like a little bit of buzz. And like I said, I have a huge family, so a lot of people would come.
Mm-hmm.
But the expectations weren't that I was just going to knock him out. It has kind of transitioned to that because of my results. So
Yeah.
I'm not going to dictate, how I fight on other people's expectations of my results.
Yeah.
I'm just going to go out there and I'm just going to play with this guy. Izzy is a test for me to showcase how good I really am. If Jordan Levitt, took him the decision and I go out there and I demolish this motherfucker in 2.5 minutes, that's a statement. That's a statement.
It definitely is. And I'm thinking to myself, like, with the UFC in particular, there's not enough discussion. There's not enough. We're not analyzing like what's going on with the Contender Series as much as we should be. I know we're at a season right now and that's not going on, but they're going to fire that shit up again,
Mm-hmm.
right? And here's the thing that you need to think about with the Contender Series. It's like all these matchups, they're constantly needing guys, right? And then what's happening? Pretty much because we have a UFC card every single week, that means all of the weight classes need to expand. It has not been easier. It's never been easier to get in the UFC than it is right now. Like when you think about like 10 years ago and like pre the Contender Series era compared to now, it's
Yeah, it was like the
completely
ultimate
different.
fighter or just get
Yeah,
signed. Right.
exactly. Those were your options. You had tough or you had to get signed. Now there are a lot of different ways that you can find yourself in a big card on no notice. So I have to wonder, like, for you moving forward, it's like, do you kind of have to like plan for that? Where it's like, okay, well, like anytime there's like a lightweight fight in like a big show, like you look at the undercard for some of these UFC fights and stuff, it's like, okay, like I have to like mentally kind of get ready.
Honestly, no, I don't even think about that because I'm in shape. I'm ready to
Mm-hmm.
fight. And if an opportunity like that did come across, obviously I jump on it. But I'm not thinking too far,
Well,
too
shit,
far
it
into it.
happened to the last guy that you called out on my show, Don Shanis. He got freaking called up to fight a number 12 guy.
I know, I
It,
know.
you know,
And
and I feel bad for Don. Like, I feel bad that
fuck, dude, Sadiq is a monster.
I felt like, like the loss aside, I think for Don, like, I can't, there's a lot of things he told me about that I'm not going to say because I'm not a fucking rat, but I will say this. There are a lot of things that happened that led up to that fight that he had to go through. Like weight cuts and all other kinds of shit. And then for him to like get in there and for that fight to end the way that it did, I know he wants that one back. And like I was just talking to him, he's just like, dude, I'd run that shit back with Yusuf. I don't fucking care. He's like, I know I'm way better than that. And I'm like, oh, man, that's shitty. I felt really bad for him. Like he waited so long to get that opportunity. But I did tell him though, I was like, dude, short notice against a ranked guy, they'll bring you back. Like they will
Guess
bring you
what?
back.
You're in.
You're in. He's in.
You made it to the dance. Who cares?
Yeah.
It's in the past now.
It's in the past. I think he's fine about it now, but nobody visualizes going and making it like their UFC or Bellator debut and losing. Nobody.
In 30 seconds, of course.
Yeah.
No, of course not. Of course not. But I mean, fuck. Hey, if you're gonna come in on short notice against a ranked opponent, you got nothing to lose. There's nothing. There's no shame in anything like that. And but that's only for the guys that really know what's up. Like,
Yeah.
obviously the casuals are going to say whatever they're going to say, but you can't listen to that. Just get right back on the horse and get back to work. And even though I called him out and we've had our words back and forth, now he's with UFC. I'll probably be with Bellator. I got nothing but respect for the guy, so I hope to see him do well.
I hope that as well. But I want you, Mr. Augustine, I want you to like get into like a huge promotion. Like I just feel like of all the guys that are out there, it's like you're on that short list. I keep thinking to myself every time there's like a lightweight fight, and I'm like, for these Bellator ones in particular, I'm like, watch a guy miss weight, watch a guy get COVID. What's gonna
Hey,
happen?
uh, Mr. Choi, I'm your boy right here. I'm going to fight on the 5th, and I'm going to be ready to go on the 18th if anything happens in Chicago.
Well, there
If
we
anything happens
go.
in Chicago, Mick Maynard, anything happens in the future, you guys got to show every damn week. My number is, I'm just kidding.
Well, and
Hit
then
me up, though.
we got PFL as well. So you have three big promotions. And here's the thing about PFL that is so underrated. And I tell everybody this. It's like, dude, you do not have to be a big name to get a big fight in the PFL. You just have to win. You don't have to
Yep.
market shit. All you have to do is just win. And
Yep.
dude, when you look at some of these guys that are in the PFL, that the ones that aren't in the tournament, I'm talking about just like the guys that they have on the undercard or just whatever, right? It's like, are these guys all that much better than you? No.
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 Well, hey, Delano Taylor is the ultimate example of this, where he came in on that Challenger Series at the
Mm-hmm.
beginning of the year, won, slid into the tournament, won through, and now look at him, knocked
Yeah.
out Rory for $1 million. He was the Titan champ last year.
Yep. And that's you, man. Like I'm just like, well, why not? Why not us? I always say that. I'm like, well, why not us? So I
I'm
think
with
it's
you.
I think it's only going to be a very, very short amount of time until I'm going to get breaking news and I'm going to see something show up across my phone but it's going to be you. It's going to be like, you're going to be the guy that's making that UFC short notice fight, or you're going to be that guy that's on the Bellator card or in the PFL card. It's only going to be a matter of time. I think that's going to be super exciting.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate that. And I
Ja-
appreciate you having me on here and helping me build
Anytime,
everything
my
I'm
friend. It's
doing,
always a
especially for my
pleasure.
place.
It's always a pleasure to have you. And before I let you go, as always, I know you have a lot of people that work behind the scenes to make Team Augie what it is. So if there's guys that you need to shout out, I'd like you to have the chance to do that.
Thank you, brother. I got to shout out all of my sponsors. Let me start out with Total Roofing St. Louis. If you got any roofing needs in St. Louis, you need to hit my guys up. Two car guys down in Crystal City. If you need a car in St. Louis, call my man John Sands. DMB's fabulous slots of funds. If you're looking for a good time, maybe even get a little bankroll, and while you're chilling, having a couple beers over in Columbia, Illinois, go see Bob and Debbie over there. We got Reset Vintage. If you want any Bape Supreme, I got this at Reset. Any of your designer, Warren Jordans, like I said, Bape Supreme, all your dope streetwear. Reset's got you. Sports analytics. Don't make your bets. Let them help you have the odds make you make your bets. Go see my guys over at Sports Analytics. Follow them on Instagram and make some bread this weekend at UFC 280. I'm gonna have a big post coming out with them tomorrow. And then we are actually also welcoming on Traditional 636/314, the best Mexican restaurant in St. Louis. These guys got my back. If you're in St. Louis, go check them out in Chesterfield or St. Charles. Yeah, that's everybody. And I got to thank, obviously, all my coaches, all my training partners over at St. Charles. Man, I love all you guys. Wouldn't be able to do this without you. Tyler, you are the man. Thank you for having me on again, brother. You've had my back since I was, just coming back and just trying to break back into the scene. And obviously we're getting back to where we want to be. So
It's very exciting. Always a pleasure to have you. If you are trying to buy tickets, or do you even have tickets? Or are you sold out now?
I have tickets. Hit me up on Instagram if you're in St. Louis and you need tickets. Message me directly, please.
All right. So I will go ahead, and by the time I post this up, I'm going to put that. That'll be the very first thing that you see. If you need tickets, hit up Josh. But by then, they're going to go fast. So, you might be fucked by the time I actually post this up on YouTube. But good luck to you, Josh. Always a pleasure. We'll do it again real soon.